This is the first time that we've had an event at the NYU Casa Italiana, or at least a whole event about the topic of Romani migration. And I would say it's about time, because Italy, as I'm sure some of you know, has one of the worst recent human rights records among Western European countries for its treatment of migrant Roma. I would say it's been surpassed only by France in that respect. I would also say that in my estimation, the opinion of migrant Roma in Italy has improved relatively little in the last 10 years. And that's despite the fact that 2005 to 2015 was officially the decade of Roma inclusion in 12 other countries. That was actually 11 Eastern European countries plus Spain. And despite the fact that in 2011, Italy published its own national strategy for the inclusion of Roma, Sinti, and Caminanti communities. And that was in response, as these things often are, to an EU directive, the European Union Framework for National Roma Integration Strategies. In other words, the Italians didn't decide to do this. In some ways, they were asked to do this by the EU. So let me just explain how this evening's session is going to work. We're going to show a short film called Roma Settlements in Rome, which I made in 2015. It runs 19 and a half minutes. And before the screening, I'm going to give a little bit of historical background to the film, and I'm going to introduce the other two speakers. And then after the screening, the other speakers will talk in turn, and then we'll have questions and answer, Q&A and discussion. So first, the background. Roma migrations. Romani people have been migrating west for centuries, but the most recent long wave of migrations from Eastern Europe and the Balkans started in the 1960s, particularly migrations from what was then Yugoslavia, of various Roma groups. It rose to a peak after 1989 with the fall of communist regimes there. There were then large exoduses of Roma from Romania. In fact, that's when Yann Dimitra left. He left after 89, as he says in the film. From Kosovo during and after the 1998-99 war. From Serbia, Macedonia, Czechoslovakia as it was then, and Bulgaria. Of course, the Roma migrants didn't all go to Italy. But Italy received a fair number. And in fact, after the European Union enlargement of 2007, January 2007, when Romania and Bulgaria joined the EU, Germany and Denmark placed restrictions on access of Romanians and Bulgarians. And this meant that the principal target countries for the migration of Romanian Roma were then Italy, France, Spain, and the UK. The number of migrant Roma in Italy is estimated now, but these estimates are very approximate because there aren't official censuses and some people don't like to declare themselves, but it's around 85,000. And the total of Roma and Sinti in Italy and Caminanti is probably about 180,000. So about half of these people are migrated in the last 40 years. And 85,000 people is under 2% of the total number of foreign residents in Italy, which is now around 5 million. And it's about 0.14% of the total Italian population, which is about 60 million. So we're not talking about a large minority. But the size of that minority has been greatly magnified by media discourse. It's in some ways not unlike the situation of Jews in Germany at the time the Nazis came to power in 1933, where there was this huge inflation of a very small number of people in public discourse. It's also worth, I think, mentioning that many of the people who migrated in this last wave had suffered persecution in their countries of origin. I think is quite well known, the fall of the communist regimes after 1989 led to the re-emergence of old ethnic conflicts, old ethnic hatreds, and also of new class divisions. As these moved to market economies, they became more socially polarized than before. And these quickly disadvantaged the Roma populations. So in 1991, just to mention a couple of examples, a 23-year-old music student was murdered in a small town 40 miles north of Bucharest, a non-Rome student, and in retaliation, 18 houses of Roma families were burned down. In 1993, in the village of Hadareni in Transylvania, in western Romania, the region where my grandmother came from, 3 Romani men were killed by a lynch mob after a non-Rome man had been fatally stabbed by one of the 3. And then 19 houses of Roma were burned down. And there have been similar pogrom-type episodes in Hungary, Bulgaria, in some cases aided or even directly perpetrated by police. So I mentioned at the beginning Italy's poor human rights record in relation to migrant Roma, and I've just mentioned very briefly the 3 main human rights violations I'm talking about, because these have a bearing on the situation we're going to be talking about today. One is forced expulsions and repatriations. These were carried out in Italy in 2007, initially in retaliation after the death of a woman in October 2007. Her name was Giovanna Reggiani. She was the wife of a naval captain. She was killed after a robbery, sexual assault. She was beaten over the head. She died two days later in hospital without regaining consciousness. The person who was accused of the killing and was arrested was a Romanian Rom called Nicolae Mailat, who is still serving a prison sentence for this. He claimed that he robbed Giovanna Reggiani but didn't kill her, and that other people were involved. Anyway, I mean, it's a terrible story and a terrible case, but what's significant is the retaliation. The mayor of Rome then, Walter Veltroni, put pressure on the government to have an exceptional law that was passed to allow the expulsion of EU citizens where there was a security risk or a risk of crime, and they began expelling Romanians from Italy. Not a very large number, but it was significant. As you probably know, in France this was much more serious. But just to mention, Denmark, Germany, and Sweden all expelled Kosovar Roma between 2003 and 2013. And in France, notoriously in 2009, 2010, around 18,000 Roma were deported to Bulgaria and Romania under Sarkozy. And these expulsions weren't just discriminatory. In some cases, they were in violation of the 1951 UN Convention of Refugees, the non-refoulement clause, which says that you can't expel or deport somebody back to a country of origin where they risk persecution or violence. Since many of these Kosovar Roma were being deported back to a situation where they were likely to face renewed persecution and violence. And in the case of the Bulgarians and Romanians, these expulsions were also in contravention of the EU law, which guarantees to all European citizens the freedom of movement and the right to reside in different member states. And of course, not surprisingly, these expulsions by the French drew fierce reactions from the European Parliament and the European Commission, as well as various human rights and Roma rights organizations. The second area of violation of human rights is discriminatory treatment in the criminal justice system, where there have been cases, I won't go into detail, which usually take the form of accusations based on flimsy evidence against Romani people. Most typical case are when women are accused of abducting or attempting to abduct children, and the facts are never clearly established. In some cases, this has led to unjust incarceration. The most notorious case, which I've mentioned in a book I wrote, is the case of a young 16-year-old Romanian Romney named Angelica V, who was served a 3-year sentence in the juvenile prison of Nisida in Naples, accused of having abducted or tried to abduct a baby from a family, and this never happened. And in fact, there was really no evidence that this happened. And the third violation of human rights, which is the one we're going to touch on today and which the film deals with, is denial of access to adequate housing. This is really the main theme which I think I'd like to draw out, the fact that there's really a very dire situation in Italy for many migrant Roma, that they are not accessing adequate and decent housing, and many of them are confined to camps in a kind of ghetto-like situation. So I organised this event initially to look at these issues as they relate to the housing situation of Roma in Italy from Romania, since that's the main subject and the main group of people that I've been working with in my fieldwork. But as I started interviewing more and more families in Italy and Romania, I discovered that they had recently been a substantial amount of onward migration from Italy to the US, particularly among younger people. These are people under 30, usually, sometimes with young families. And so I decided we should enlarge the discussion to look at migrations and settlement in the USA as well. And that leads me to introducing my two speakers. If they can please just stand up and say hello. Yann Dimitra, who appears in the short film you're going to see. In some ways, he's the star of the film because he appears first and speaks and comes back several times. He is, as I mentioned already, a Rom who left Romania after the 1989 revolution. He and his family first sought asylum in Germany, where they lived for 4 years. Then after a brief return to Romania, he moved in 1995 to Italy, where he found work as a truck driver and lived in various camps, first in Brescia, then in Foggia, then Rome. In 2011-2012, he worked for the Office for Orientation of Roma and non-Roma immigrants in the Comune di Roma. In June 2016, he took part in the European Union Conference on Minorities and Discrimination. In October 2016, he was involved in the launch of what was called the Red Notebook of the European project Marry When You're Ready, and that's a project aimed at preventing early and arranged marriages of young Roma. And he's, I should also mention, completing a degree in sociology at the University of Rome Sapienza and writing his thesis on the history of Roma in Romania. And he will speak in Italian, and he will be translated, as I mentioned, by Maria Galetta. Carol Silverman, thank you, Carol, is Professor of Cultural Anthropology and Folklore at the University of Oregon. She's done collaborative research with Roma for over 30 years in Bulgaria and Macedonia, Western Europe and the US. She looks at politics, music, human rights, gender, migration and state policy, with a focus on representation. Her book, Romani Roots, Cultural Politics and Balkan Music and Diaspora, published in 2012, won the Merriam Prize from the Society of Ethnomusicology. And her current project examines the issues of appropriation in the globalization of Romani culture. For many years, she's worked with the NGO Voice of Roma on activist music projects, and she's also, I should mention, a performer of music and a teacher of Balkan Romani music. Okay, so I will get to the film in it. Just before showing the film, I think I need to say a couple of words to contextualize it about the housing situation in Italy, and in Rome in particular. And I need to say something about what some of the Italian media still refer to as campi nomadi, or nomad camps, and referring to Roma as nomadi or nomads. The majority of Roma who migrated from Eastern Europe in the long wave I was talking about, and particularly after the fall of the communist regimes in 1989, didn't have a nomadic past. They were, in fact, in communist Eastern Europe, you were obliged to live in housing. You couldn't move around. So they had a sedentary past. The camps were a solution that the Italians devised, and they were initially devised in northern Italy in the 1960s. The first camps were all in the north, Bolzano, Trento, Milan, Torino, Cuneo, and then the model spread down to the rest of Italy. However, despite this fact, there's this widespread misperception in Italy that all Roma are nomads and they choose to live in camps. A survey done in 2008, 84% of Italians surveyed agreed with the statement Roma and Sinti are nomads, and 83% agreed with the statement that they choose to live in camps isolated from the rest of the city. These statements are both completely false. Also, I think most Italians remain unaware that migrant Roma from Eastern Europe had experienced hostility and racism from police and neighbours before they migrated. So they're, in other words, getting away from a past of violence and intimidation. So, also this idea that there's something wrong with the camps and the camp model is not new. It's been going on for a long time. If we go back to 2000, the European Roma Rights Centre, which is based in Budapest, published a pamphlet called Campland, and that means Italy. And the subtitle is Racial Segregation of Roma in Italy. Amnesty International, 2010, The Wrong Answer, Italy's nomad plan violates the housing rights of Roma in Rome. 2014, the first of a series of briefing papers published by Open Society Foundations called Roma in Italy, Camp Segregation is Racial Discrimination. And then very recently, this I think is, sorry, no, less recently, 2015, again, the European Roma Rights Centre, Municipality of Rome condemned for l'Arbabuta camp. For the first time in Europe, an official Roma-only settlement is ruled discriminatory. And then, sorry, this is the most recent one. This is the Associazione 21 Luglio, which is an Italian NGO. It's done a lot of work with Roma, talking about Camping River, which is the camp where Yann lives, which there's been an attempt to close, but an inadequate attempt to rehouse the Roma in other kinds of places. So this is a continuing story. It's been going on for at least 17 years, these calls to close these camps. And if we look at a map of Rome, this is not a particularly Roma-friendly story from the Il Messaggero, the Rome newspaper. It's got a very useful map. And it shows that really since 2000 and... just trying to think when the date was, when I think it was when Walter Veltroni was mayor of Rome, so that was between 2001 and 2008. So in 2003, he started developing his plan to move Roma out, further out to the city rim into what were called campi attrezzati, which is camps, official camps that had basically running water and other kinds of services. And this was presented as a kind of humanitarian solution. Okay, we're going to keep them in camps, but the camps are going to be better, but they're going to be a long way from the center. And if you look at this map, I'm just highlighting some of them here. The Camping River, which is the one where Yann lives, is up here, right on the, this is green ring is the Raccordo, Grande Raccordo Anulare, the outer ring road. So just to give a reference here, that's the Tiber, that's St. Peter's, that's, I suppose, the Quirinale Palace, the Colosseum, and Santa Cecilia in Trastevere. That's the kind of tourist center of Rome. These places are all out on the rim now. This one is Via Candoni, which appears in the film, down there, going out on the road towards Fiumicino Airport. Via Magliana. This is Salone, out on the northeast side. And then there is Lombroso, which is out on Monte Mario, up on the hill, and so on. The main point is physical dispersal to the edges of the city, where these people, of course, can't access schools very easily. Transport is complicated. You often have to get two or three buses to get to the city centre. So it's really a form of physical marginalisation, pushing people to the actual margins of cities, social exclusion, and impossible to form any kind of community with other people who are gagè, in other words, non-Roma people. So really an extraordinary case of denial of the human right to adequate housing and integration in the city. I think it would be almost obvious to follow up with a question to Yann about what's really happened since I made that film 2 years ago, 2015. And I particularly like him, adesso parlo in italiano. Vorrei che tu magari ci parlassi un po' di quello che è successo negli ultimi 2 anni, soprattutto la situazione della casa dove abiti tu, e no? Magari per aggiornare il pubblico sulla situazione a Roma.
Allora, prima di tutto, buonasera a tutti. Ringrazio a tutti gli invitati, specialmente a professor David Forgacs che mi ha invitato, che in parte ha conosciuto, come avete detto, avete visto il film. Mi dispiace che a quest'ora qua non mi piacerebbe a dire che ci sono delle novità di miglioramento nella vita della comunità rom che vivono nei campi o fuori campi. Avete visto una piccola parte del film, il degrado e la discriminazione, episodi di pregiudizio in quali i rom vivono ancora. Ripeto, mi dispiace che non c'ho delle novità. Mi piacerebbe a dire, guarda, dopo tutti questi anni si vede un movimento bello di miglioramento nella vita dei rom. Purtroppo non è così. Ricordava prima il professore del problema della casa. È stato istituito nel 2012 un piano di miglioramento e di inclusione delle comunità rom, sinti e camminanti un piano del Consiglio europeo, da quale l'Italia è firmataria. Quindi se parlo di questi miglioramenti dovevano avvenire dal 2012, invece non si sono mossi per niente. Allora sotto le pressioni, diciamo, le multe che ripetuto hanno avuto da parte del Consiglio d'Europa, dicono loro che hanno iniziato a fare qualcosa, hanno avuto dei fondi per fare questo inizio di miglioramento, di integrazione, partendo sicuramente da casa e lavoro, che sono collegati tra di loro, non potendo avere una senza l'altro. Il mio dolore più grande è che praticamente il campo dove vivo è un campo, così come avete visto. Non abbiamo desiderato noi a vivere in quel campo, in tutti i campi, gli altri che esistono, ma sono stati loro, le istituzioni, i politici che ci hanno imposto questi posti dove potevamo vivere. Allora noi, messi davanti a questa soluzione, non avendo altra, siamo stati costretti ad accettare a vivere nei campi, sapendo che non è una vita degna di una persona di un essere umano. Dai paesi dove abbiamo vissuto in una casa come qualsiasi di voi presenti in questa sala. Portavamo i nostri bambini da soli alla scuola, non avevamo bisogno di tutto questo assistenzialismo che è praticato nei campi. Questo fatto non ha fatto altro che deresponsabilizzare i genitori, così come si diceva nel film, quel giovane ragazzo, io sapendo che si occupa qualcun altro di mio figlio, io mi deresponsabilizzo, sto tranquillo, so soltanto che il pulmino viene, lo prende e lo porta a scuola. Quindi non è integrazione questa, anzi ha peggiorato la situazione, la fiducia dei genitori nei loro stessi. Attualmente la soluzione, così come hanno pensato loro, è, diciamo, che la casa e il lavoro, ma in maniera in quale loro la presentano è deplorabile. Per farla breve, hanno pensato che offrendo alle famiglie rom esistenti nei campi una cifra di 800 euro per poter coprire l'affitto in una casa a Roma e non superando i 10.000 euro, loro faranno questo bonus ad avere alle famiglie. Però come istituzione e un dipartimento di politiche sociali dovrebbero occuparsi dalla fine e a dare soluzioni concrete in questo progetto che è imposto anche dalla strategia per poter portare a buon fine. Invece loro hanno fatto solo dei comunicati dicendo che noi fra 3 mesi chiudiamo il campo. Questa è una strategia politica che a Roma e in Italia la fanno da 20 anni, da 30 anni, e non dico qui davanti a tutti un segreto che è il scandalo Mafia Capitale, che su Roma hanno speso migliaia e decine di migliaia di euro come fondi europei.
Se ti posso interrompere,
Sì.
perché forse sarebbe utile chiarire due cose che non ho spiegato nell'introduzione, se mi permetti.
Sì.
La prima cosa è questa cosa a cui si è riferito Yann adesso, che l'Unione Europea ha stanziato fondi, cioè ha dato soldi,
Sì.
e pagherebbero 800 euro al mese fino a un massimo di 10.000 euro per ogni famiglia per poter affittare una casa. Cioè, quindi i soldi ci sono, no? Ma non sono arrivati a loro, quindi cioè, questa promessa di dare soldi non è stata realizzata. Questa è la prima cosa. Seconda cosa che ti volevo chiedere, forse da approfondire, cioè, come sappiamo è stata eletta una nuova sindaca di Roma, Virginia
Sì,
Raggi,
sì.
del Movimento 5 Stelle. Allora, ci sono stati 3 sindaci a Roma, c'è stato prima Walter Veltroni del Partito Democratico dal 2001 al 2008, poi Gianni Alemanno,
Sì.
che era della destra, di quella che si chiamava allora Alleanza Nazionale, e adesso Virginia Raggi del Movimento 5 Stelle. Lei è stata eletta con questa promessa che farebbe qualcosa per risolvere la questione Rom, no? Che chiuderebbe i campi e i Rom sarebbero messi in delle case adeguate, decenti. Però non è successo. Allora ti chiederei...
Arrivava a questa cosa con Virginia Raggi, però volevo dire prima che è tutta una strategia politica, con una cosa da aggiungere: dopo Alemano, prima della Raggi, c'era Marino, che era un medico di professione,
Marino, sì.
e che praticamente a quello che, nel modo in cui si muoveva, ci aveva dato speranze che voleva veramente a fare qualcosa di buono. Ma sempre i politici hanno trovato una scorciatoia e l'hanno fatto dimettersi dal ruolo del
Questo
sindaco.
mi ricorda. L'altra cosa che non ho detto, che va chiarito, è questa cosa di mafia capitale, no? Che hanno scoperto questa organizzazione mafiosa a Roma e che i soldi stanziati per i Rom sono finiti nelle tasche di
E che questo
operatori
medico,
sociali, poliziotti, quelli che gestivano i campi, quindi c'è stata questa sperequazione, questo sperpero di soldi enorme, che quindi uno dei motivi per cui non si è stato risolto il problema Roma è questa corruzione a alto livello nel Comune di Roma.
e che questo medico eletto da tutti i romani come sindaco di Roma era, guarda caso, una curiosità, era pulito, non faceva parte della mafia capitale, e quindi si è levato le mani e ha detto che farà dei cambiamenti grossi. Per questa cosa tutti quelli che eravano e facevano parte della mafia capitale hanno trovato la soluzione e l'hanno fatto dimettersi. Dopo era arrivata questa signora Raggi, Virginia Raggi, sindaca di Roma, che tra l'altro è troppo giovane, e noi ce ne siamo accorti, come anche gli altri, che praticamente è manipolata dal suo partito che le sta dietro. Comunque, per fare una bella figura, lei si è voluta dimostrare la più brava di tutti quanti, da 30 anni in poi, in qua, che lei riuscirà, che non hanno fatto gli altri in 30 anni, a chiudere i campi. Il percorso è questo che ce l'ha detto al campo. Prima iniziamo col campo River, che è il più bravo, conosciuto e straconosciuto in Roma e in Italia, la più grande frequenza scolastica, il più pulito campo, anche come lavoro, i più tanti numerosi lavoratori da questo campo, e hanno trovato la soluzione, che è questo che lo dobbiamo chiudere per primo, con questo bonus di 800 euro, come diceva il professore, solo sulla carta, perché poi non ci interessava che ci dava in mano, ma che era una cosa realistica, reale, ma era tutto sulla carta, così. Il primo passo, dicevano, un patto fatto tra noi e voi in Roma, il Dipartimento di Politiche Sociali. Lo firmate, tutto a posto. Chi non aderisce, attenzione, chi non aderisce non sarà aiutato dal comune a partecipare a questo progetto. È meglio che lo firmate e così sarete aiutati. Ognuno nucleo singolarmente sarà audiato, le esigenze di ogni famiglia li valuteremo e poi sarete aiutati. Alla prima io ho fatto tanti di questi conveni, incontri con il campo, e abbiamo detto: questa sembra una minaccia, se io ti dico se firmi va bene, se no non va bene, quindi è meglio firmare per poter partecipare. E dopo tante discussioni tra di noi abbiamo trovato la soluzione, che magari pensavamo che ci aiuterebbe, di firmare con una riserva. Questa voleva dire che noi abbiamo chiesto le due condizioni che erano scritte in quel patto: vi daremo casa e lavoro e sarete seguiti per altri 2 anni finché potete farvi la strada da soli. E abbiamo firmato con riserva, quindi con la specifica che questa firma diventerà valida quando quello che è scritto nel patto verrà rispettato. Va bene, tutti contenti. Pensavamo di iniziare una bella strada, una vera strada. Abbiamo firmato, i 3 mesi che avevamo tempo per chiudere il campo si avvicinava. Hanno iniziato i colloqui e ci hanno detto sì, trovatevi una casa, un affitto e noi pagheremo. Boh, quindi stiamo seguendo anche questo passo. Siamo andati ognuno da più volte a cercare alle agenzie che si occupavano con gli affitti delle case, ma anche ai diretti privati, perché la regola in Italia è così: devi avere un lavoro per forza e anche la dimostrazione che lavori e che sei pagato e quanto sei pagato. Tanti di Roma avevano, tanti non ci avevano questo contratto, però avevano alle spalle il coraggio di poter dire noi facciamo parte di questo progetto e il comune pagherà. Ma la gente non si fidano, anche gli italiani non si fidano delle politiche, delle strutture, delle istituzioni. Diceva, ma che mi dice a me del comune? A me il comune mi dà soldi. Vedo il telefono, parlate con noi, no, non ci interessa. Mi paghi, ti metto dentro la casa, se no, no. A questo punto abbiamo fatto tante volte altre discussioni tra di noi e abbiamo fatto una delegazione. Sono andato da loro e abbiamo chiesto, signori, così non si fa. O ci fate tramite con le agenzie e voi garanti, allora forse ci accetteranno. Ma no, ma noi non possiamo fare questa cosa. Allora noi, se voi, per voi, come istituzione, non potete, come sarà possibile per noi Rom? Questo era uno degli impedimenti che ci facevano riuscire a questa cosa. Il secondo era un Rom. Sei Rom, ma da dove vieni? Perché la mass media ci ha fatto molto male anche con questa. I Rom lasciano il campo, devono uscire e noi italiani non dobbiamo dare case. Anche se andavi davanti a un'agenzia, un proprietario e dicevi guarda faccio parte di questo progetto, e dice sì ma vieni dal campo river, sì, allora no, non possiamo fare. Perché? Avete la garanzia del comune. Eravamo costretti anche a dire questa bugia, perché il comune diceva no, non ne facciamo garanti per voi. Avete garanti del comune di Roma? No, ma no, però no, voi chi mi garantisce che dopo un anno esci dalla casa mia? Chi mi garantisce il pagamento di questa cifra? No, non possiamo fare. E quindi attualmente è un disastro. È venuto il 30 settembre, il comune praticamente ci hanno detto chiaro in faccia, non pagheremo più una lira per il campo, perché quella era una struttura privata, avevano accordi fino al 30 settembre con il comune che pagava la luce, l'acqua e tutto quanto. Allora ci hanno detto il 30 settembre non pagheremo più, lasciamo solo la luce. Scusate, ma in questo caso noi diventiamo abusivi, come facciamo? Come possiamo continuare a far parte del progetto? Perché loro continuano a dire sì, noi facciamo i colloqui e vediamo le esigenze di ognuna famiglia. Io personalmente ho proposto a tutte le famiglie non ancora chiamate all'intervista, perché siamo tanti, siamo 121 nuclei familiari, e hanno chiamato praticamente neanche una ventina. Io ho proposto, signori, noi non dobbiamo andare, noi non dobbiamo opporci ad andare a questi colloqui, perché questi colloqui non ci portano a niente, siamo sempre nell'oscurità, non ci sono soluzioni concrete, non ci dicono niente. Infatti è successo così, continuano a fargli i colloqui, a chiamare la gente qualcuno va, qualcuno non va, ma è uguale se vai o se non vai, la situazione dice continuo, cercatevi, quando cercate noi paghiamo. Sì, ma fino a quel punto non ci li danno, non ci accettano neanche così, per il fatto che siamo Rom. Abbiamo fatto tante strade, abbiamo fatto ultimamente una settimana fa una manifestazione sotto il Campidoglio, abbiamo chiesto di essere ricevuti dalla sindaca Raggi, ma la sindaca Raggi, guarda caso, è l'unica di tutti quelli altri che non ha fatto mai una visita a un campo. Tutti gli altri avevano fatto per dovere, per fare l'immagine, però lei non ha visto mai un campo come si vive, quali sono le realtà, quali sono i problemi e le esigenze delle famiglie. E questa è la storia del campo. La gente sono molto preoccupati. L'unica cosa di cui io vado orgoglioso è che i bambini hanno continuato ad andare alla scuola. Vi ho detto, ragazzi, a qualsiasi prezzo, a qualsiasi costo, noi dobbiamo portare i ragazzini a scuola alle nostre spese con i nostri mezzi.
Ti volevo interrompere, ma ti ringrazio per questo quadro della situazione molto deprimente, direi, però c'è molto
Una realtà in cui vivo
chiaro.
quotidianamente, non è un racconto, una cosa, vivo quotidianamente questa cosa e sono preoccupato perché a quest'ora io sto qua, ieri sera e oggi ho parlato e ho chiesto sempre se sono le novità, si stanno muovendo in qualche direzione o no. Ci hanno lasciato proprio abbandonati a quest'ora, proprio
Ti
abbandonati.
sono molto grato per essere venuto qua a raccontarci di questa cosa, però a questo punto, se non ti dispiace, direi di andare avanti, poi ci sarà la possibilità di fare un po' di dibattito col pubblico, però vorrei chiedere a questo punto a Carol Silverman di intervenire e parlarci un po' della situazione in America. Quindi tu ti devi mettere la cuffia.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you. Hello? First of all, I'd like to say thank you for the distinguished invitation to be here. As a non-Romani person, I feel very, very privileged to be here with Yann Dimitra and Professor Forgacs to share some perspectives on America. Certainly you have a lot of questions about Italy, and I'm not a specialist on Italy, but we live in New York, we are here, and I think some perspectives on America is very important. So what I thought I would just do in a few minutes, no more than 5-10 minutes, is talk about some of the historic migrations of Roma to the US, because they're very, very varied and differ one from the other, but ending with the Romanian newest migration. But before I do that, I would like to say that all Roma in the US do suffer from stereotypification and discrimination, no matter how educated, how integrated they are, how many they are, how few they are. And in America, the package goes like this. It's a double-pronged stereotype, which is also a European stereotype, but is a little bit different in America because many Americans don't know Roma personally or don't think they know Roma personally, and the numbers are fewer. And it's the double prong of the romantic stereotype and the criminal stereotype. So the romantic side is the word gypsy, gypsy fashion and gypsy food rubs and gypsy clothing and gypsy music festivals, gypsy goddess festivals, gypsy 05 fashion, Roma boots, gypsy tea. It's all around us, and when you talk to people about why they're using this word as a brand, they say, oh, that means an artistic, wandering, musical person that I admire, and I love this stereotype. But it's just as damaging to Roma as the other stereotype, because it isn't about real people, okay? It's a fantasy, and many Americans have this fantasy of the word gypsy. The other stereotype is the criminal gypsy, which is very active in America and actually very historic as well. So still today, we have trainings by your tax dollars, police trainings in gypsy criminality in many parts of the country. I'm from the Northwest. I'm originally from New York, but recently we stopped one in Bellevue, Washington, that was paid for by the Bellevue City Police. And these trainings are usually done by retired detectives in the police force. Some of them are part of the National Association of Bunco Investigators. Bunco is like crime. And they do it under the rubric of gypsy criminality trainings. And this is happening around us, okay? So aside from that, there are these Bunco investigators that keep statistics on Roma, on gypsy crimes and what patterns they are, as if they're genetic or happen by families or ethnicities, Yugoslavian gypsy crimes, Polish gypsy crimes. It's classic racial profiling. Okay, so with that in mind, I just wanted to give you a little bit of history, and very quickly, there are Roma from every single group in America. So America has Roma from every historic group in Europe, and they came at many different times. So as early as colonial times, we have Roma from the British Empire, from Britain itself. The largest wave of Roma migration happened between 1880 and 1920, along with other East and Southern Europeans. And that group included many people who had recently been enslaved in southern and northern Romania. The period of slavery in Romania, and Yann is writing about this in his thesis, lasted for hundreds of years, and the decree to free slaves was in 1856 in Romania. It didn't take effect till 1860s. When this happened, waves of Romanian Roma went out to other countries and started traveling westward, and some came to America in the second wave of migration, along with Italians and East Europeans. By the way, the period of slavery in Romania was official. This is official state policy. Slaves were owned by the nobility and the church as well. Okay, and this is something we don't even learn about. So in terms of erasure of Roma from both European history and American curriculum, this is pretty extreme, I would say. So that group, the group that came from 1880 to 1920, included a lot of different Roma from a lot of different places in Europe. The largest group are the Calderaș in America today, and we think there may be 1 million or several 100,000 Calderaș. There are many, many in New York City, in every city. They're actually the most conservative culturally, still speak Romanesque language as their first language, and some of the occupations that the Calderaș have adapted through their decades are metal work for men, which was very much needed in a society where you had to have your pots retinned and your horseshoes and your materials for the loom. Those were men's occupations, and that became car repair and car sales. And still today, many Calderaș families are involved in car dealing. And for women, some of them were involved in fortune telling in this group, not all groups. Fortune telling today still exists. There's a lot of, again, racial profiling, assuming that fortune telling is a crime, when actually it's protected by law, just like astrology and stock investment advice. All of these things are hypothetical. No, actually, the case in California to protect fortune telling was argued along those lines, that any type of predicting the future is actually is protected by US law. And anyway, fortune tellers don't predict the future. It's more like what I call folk psychology, which you can find on the internet and anywhere, advice and spiritual counseling and buying amulets for good luck. I mean, this is not certainly a Romani monopoly. Anyway, the Calderaș are the largest group in the US, but not the only group. Another group here in New York are Macedonian Roma, who are very well educated, came in the 1960s in that same wave of migration when Yugoslavia was, well, actually they came in the 60s when Yugoslavia was sending guest workers abroad to bring back remittances. And Macedonian families live in the Bronx, live in New Jersey, live in Manhattan, and are very well integrated. People are professionals, electricians, people are college students, people are in the professions, accountants, nurses, and so on. Now, you don't hear about these groups. In America, what we hear about is probably the more, you might say, exoticized groups that the media exoticizes. So I'll mention the two Romanian news stories that have been circulating just in the last few months. So Romanian Roma have been coming for the last 2 years, and Yann can talk about his relatives or community members he's going to see tomorrow in Baltimore. I'd like to ask him about that later. But what I'd like to talk about is something from the outside, is how do we find out about Roma? Well, if you opened Fox News or any story from Western Pennsylvania, a town called California, Pennsylvania, just last June, you would have seen stories about a hysteria about Roma, about gypsies, who were killing chickens and defecating in public. This is what the story said. So this is all the old stereotypes that start getting reused and revitalized. There were actually only 40 families there, and they are on the list for asylum. In other words, they are processed already in the first stages of immigration for the US. They have every right to be there, but the local residents labeled them as uncivilized, primitive, and the media picked up on it. And you can look this up on, it's not even only Fox News, it was the local stations there. And then just a few weeks ago, there was a story about Romani fraudulent beggars in BART in the San Francisco Bay Area on the subway system. And actually, I was interviewed for that story on CBS, not even knowing that the story was about fraudulent begging. They told me it was a story to explain Roma, so I agreed. And so even people who are trying to advocate for Roma get caught up in the kind of media hysteria about these strange, foreign, uncivilized people. So do be careful where you get your information about Roma, okay? It's really important for Americans to find information that is reliable and to work with Roma themselves, because it's so easy for anybody to spread misinformation. And these get amplified to historic stereotypes that have been around for hundreds of years. So I think I'll stop there.
So interesting, thank you. So now we're going to open up for some discussion. I'm sorry, Maria, wherever you are, this is putting some pressure on you, but if you have a question for Yann, please can either say it in English, is that right? And you'll get a translation from Maria, or you can say it in Italian. And obviously, Carol will take the question in English. So please, and could you also please speak through the microphone, because if you don't do that, then Maria at the back won't be able to hear you. So, Alex, if you pass that around.
Thank you, Yann. I was wondering if you could give us a definition of how you view Roma. How would you define Roma? How do you think that others define Roma who are not part of the Roma community? And when does one cease being Roma and is actually assimilated into that community where they're no longer discriminated? What's that process?
Allora, la risposta allora, i Rom vengono definiti, almeno parlo della realtà italiana, che come credono che sono i Rom in realtà. In Italia gira questo corrente della mass media che non è stato mai da parte dei Rom e lavorano al contrario, colgono qualsiasi occasione a mettergli una luce. Il quadro generale è quello che i Rom sono, così come diceva il predecessore prima, sempre con i baffi lunghi, rubano, sono sporchi, non gli piacciono lavorare. Quindi le persone, sentendo questa cosa, definiscono i Rom così come sentono dalla mass media. Ripeto, la mass media non è stata mai e non parla mai del positivismo del mondo Rom, del Rom in persona, perché ci sono casi, diciamo che i Rom che vivono in campi sono pochi, sono molto di più quelli che vivono in casa, vivono come persone normali, lavorano, studiano e hanno una vita normale. Di quelli che hanno una vita e sono integrati normalmente non parlano mai nessuno. Quindi il Rom che vive nel campo ha formato, diciamo, il quadro generale sui Rom, con l'aiuto della mass media che sempre parla contro dei Rom, li mette in una luce non positiva. Ecco. Non so se ho riuscito a essere chiaro nella mia risposta.
Can I just say, I think understand that the normal figure that's given is 80% of Roma and Sinti, I should say, in Italy live in housing, normal housing. So it's the 20% who live in camps who get all the attention, and of course that's where the big human rights issue is focused, quite rightly. Other questions?
Hi.
Silverman.
Most Americans don't know that the Roma in World War II, statistically more were exterminated in Nazi camps than the Jews in regards to proportional wise. And yet, I'm shocked that to this day, I understand there's no been repartations, or whatever the word you call, for the Roma by the European Union. I'm just, most people don't know that they were, over half the population was exterminated in Auschwitz and places like that. And yet, no one talks about giving them a break or giving them money or sending, the Germans didn't certainly, who was basically in charge of the European Union, aren't doing anything about that aspect. And even in the Holocaust Museum, there's only one little room upstairs in the back donated to the Roma. So I find that very unfortunate. And what is being done by the Roma about World War II?
Yeah, I think you make a very important point about the Romani Holocaust. Well, first of all, many countries in Europe don't pay any attention to the Holocaust at all. I mean, it's absolutely invisible. Actually, Germany is one of the countries that pays more attention to the Jewish Holocaust and the Roma Holocaust. But let's talk about America today, because you mentioned the Holocaust Museum. I think you mean the one in Washington. Yes, it actually took years and years of lobbying to get even one Romani person on the board of directors. And that person was Bill Duna, who sat on the Romani Holocaust board for several years. When his term expired, no one was appointed, and for another 10 years, there was no Romani person on that board, and only last year was Ethel Brooks from Rutgers University, a Romani scholar, appointed. So again, there have been many, many attempts to get Romani voices into Holocaust memorials, and it's still an ongoing battle. The UN has a 3-hour Holocaust ceremony every January. And again, activists and Roma have worked together to lobby the UN to have one Romani speaker in 3 hours. 2 years ago, Ethel Brooks spoke for 10 minutes, and then the next year we were told, I'm sorry, well, she spoke last year, so what do we need her this year? So again, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done about Holocaust studies.
Is that partly the problem being partly that, and I say this in all kind of trying to be good, that the Jewish people don't want any other association with anybody having the Holocaust but themselves?
I mean, this is a very complicated question. I can't speak for Jewish people.
No, I'd like to respond to that.
Can you just wait for the microphone?
I don't need it, actually.
Well, the translator needs to hear you in the back.
No, I'd like to respond to that question. There are many Jewish organizations that are human rights advocacy, and they advocate for all human rights, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of religion. I sit on a board, and I speak to congressmen, and I speak to ambassadors and consuls general, and we are the scope of human rights, regardless of where those rights are being violated, whether it's in Iran, whether it's in any of the Balkan countries, wherever it is. So in response to the question of the gentleman in the back, no, it is not. I don't know who the representatives are from the United Nations when they put that on January, I think it's 17th, every year. They are the ones who bring together the programs, frankly. Perhaps they don't, I don't know. Do they not have Roma names? Do they not have leaders of the communities? I don't know, frankly.
We write letters every year.
then
We write letters every year, and people come every year and stand there and wait to see if anybody will be allowed to speak. And it happened once 2 years ago when Ethel was allowed to speak, Ethel Brooks.
well, then the United Nations
I think we
organizers
should-
of this.
Yeah, let's move
have-
on to another
yeah.
topic, though. Okay, yes, we can talk afterwards.
Yes. Are there more questions directed to Yann, since we have him here just for one day? Yeah.
Hi, I'm a member of the Center for Justice at Columbia University, and right now we are trying to start the Roma Peoples Project, and I work under Cristiana Grigore, who is just here. She's a Rome from Romania as well. And we are just trying to bring Roma issues and Roma studies into the academy and kind of make people more aware of the plight of the Roma and the different experiences of Roma. So I'm wondering, I'm especially like to hear from you, but from one of you as well. Do you have any advice on things to look out for in starting this project and things to be sensitive to? And we just want to go about it in the best way. So any advice you guys have would be great.
I'm not sure what advice I have. I mean, Yann was asking me today, whether it might be possible to have some collaboration with the university here over on Romani culture and Romani musics. So that would be an area we could work on. I know this is something Carol is involved in. Yeah. So. But it's great to hear about this initiative. It's really very important. Thank you.
And if I could just follow up quickly. From a Roma perspective, what would you like to see in an organization claiming to be studying your people?
Allora, secondo me, come risposta alla tua domanda, lo scambio interculturale non può essere che benefico. Quindi se i Rom, come voi pensate fare il vostro progetto e volete vedere, perché la cultura Rom è molto diversa, ma ultimamente negli ultimi anni si sta evolvendo, quindi sta apprendendo anche delle culture nuove per un progetto ben riuscito e attirare i giovani a produrre questo scambio interculturale. Quindi è un passaggio molto importante a passare da multiculturalismo all'interculturalismo, che è ancora più benefico. Non so se sono stato come mia risposta.
Thank you. I think we have time possibly just for one more question or maybe two, if there's people waiting to get in. Can't see with the lights, but someone at the back, I think. Yeah. Oh, and also an Anne. I've got your hand. Anne, yes, thank you.
Thank you. This is a question for Professor Silverman. I mean, one way to think about the amount of prejudice that Romani people in the United States face might be to pay attention to their marriage patterns, so the extent to which they marry out of the group. And so I was just curious to ask you, how common is it among the American Romani communities you've studied to find young people kind of choosing partners within the group or moving out of the community?
Marriage patterns actually do differ according to subgroup. But I actually think it's a little bit misleading to think that if people outmarry, it's good, and that means they're integrated. Yeah, I didn't think you meant that, but I hope people didn't understand that. People should have the right to marry whoever they want, and if people want to marry in their own group, fantastic. They're Americans, they're American citizens, or they're refugee applicants, and they should be able to marry anybody. So I think we should just be careful to say that integration means intermarrying. It's not an equivalent. Integration means you have all the rights of citizenship, you receive them, and you respect the law. That's what integration is. It doesn't mean you change your culture. It doesn't mean that you have to speak English at home. Everyone should have cultural rights. I believe that. And the most successful Roma of the many groups in America are still extremely Romani, and also successful in their professions and as American citizens, but they're no less Roma for being American, okay? So I don't go by the assimilation model, and in academia we've actually abandoned that. We know that you can have many, many different identities simultaneously and be very successful and be very respectful of your nation state in all of your different identities.
Maybe could I just clarify my question then? So without any regard to a judgment about integration otherwise, is it common or not common?
It depends on which group. Yeah, the Kalderash tend to not intermarry. The Kalderash tend not to intermarry. Other groups intermarry more. So it depends on which group we're talking about.
Well, I've been asked to wind up at 7:30, and I think that's quite a good instruction because I think 90 minutes is the most people can take for an evening. Thank you very much for coming. I'd like to thank our two guests, Carol Silverman and Yann Dimitra. I'm learning very fast about Roma in America, which I knew almost nothing about until recently, and I'm going to find out more about it tomorrow when we go to Baltimore to interview some Romanian Roma there. So thank you for coming. Do follow this story as it develops, and I hope in some ways this has made people a bit more aware of some of the issues regarding Roma in Italy and in the USA. So thanks very much.